Hi, everyone. It's Phil Frost from Main Street ROI. I want to welcome you to Master Your Marketing. This is a webinar series, and today we're going to talk about how to use Google Analytics to track all of your marketing. All right, you should see my screen change. And if you're new to Master Your Marketing, this is a webinar series. We've partnered with some of the top industry experts, and they agreed to share their best, most up-to-date and actionable digital marketing advice. And each month a new expert presents, and it's 100% free. And I did want to let you know, when you do register, you'll also receive an email from the companies that are presenting in this series. And John, I just saw your question come in, and to answer that for everyone, we are recording, and we'll send a replay as well as the slides. We typically get that out in about 24 hours, so look for that email tomorrow afternoon. All right, I always start with some housekeeping. John and Armando figured out the questions box, so it looks like that's working. You guys can hear me, which is good. I do want to encourage questions. Just post those right into that questions box in the GoToWebinar widget on your computer. Typically, that's on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Always recommend you turn off distractions. You'll get the most out of this if you're not also trying to stay up to date on your Facebook feed or check email. And I do have a quick poll just to get a feel for who's on. On your screen, you should see a poll, and it says I am a, and there's three options. So if you're a business owner, or maybe you're a marketing professional working at a small business, or maybe you're a consultant or you work at an agency, that would be the third option. So it looks like we're getting some answers here. Let me just give it 5 more seconds. I'll take a drink. All right, 3, 2, 1. Let me close that out. Just to give you an idea, we've got 16% of the attendees are business owners. About half, 54%, are marketing professionals working at small businesses. And about 30% are marketing consultants or marketing agencies. Okay, hopefully you can see my screen turning here. And if I don't get to your question, I do want to let you know lots of questions come in. I might have to skip it just to get through the material, and then we are going to have a Q&A at the end. All right, so we're going to cover why metrics matter, why I would recommend you use Google Analytics. We're going to talk about how to set it up. We'll walk through some of the key reports that I would recommend you look at and monitor. I do have a gift, which is an additional resource that you can use. And then, like I said, we'll have live Q&A. Now, if this is your first webinar with Main Street ROI, you're probably wondering, who the heck am I? Why should you listen to me? Again, my name is Phil Frost. I'm the founder of Main Street ROI. Our business provides digital marketing services, primarily SEO and online advertising and Google ads, Facebook ads, and Bing. We also provide a lot of training. We have tons of free resources on our website, mainstreetroi.com. And then we have some more in-depth paid courses that you can take a look at in the education section of our site. And then we also have some master classes, which are even more in-depth. To date, we've helped over 2,000 businesses with their digital marketing, and my thought leadership has been featured in Forbes, Inc., Amex, as well as Mashable. And this is my favorite slide. I'm also the proud father of 2 kids. We've got Violet on the left. She is 6 years old and attending kindergarten on the Upper West Side. We've got Emmett on the right. He's still in preschool, and he is going to be 4 years old next month. almost exactly a month from now. And my beautiful wife, Erin, in the middle. And we live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And I am in the office here, which is on 23rd and 6th Ave of Manhattan. Now, Wendy just mentioned the reception's not great. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Typically, I'm using the same headset that typically we don't have any issues. So Wendy, hopefully that's just an issue on your audio. So as far as why metrics matter, I like to think of Google Analytics as your marketing report card. So I just showed my two kids. Believe it or not, they get report cards. So even in preschool, my son gets a report card. I forget how frequently, maybe 2 or 3 per year. And it's just a good checkpoint to see how he's progressing along the key milestones as far as child development. So as a parent, that's obviously important. As a business owner or a marketing professional, it's really important to have that feedback for your marketing campaigns as well to make sure that they're progressing and hitting the milestones that you need to achieve. So you really want to think of Google Analytics as that report card that you used to get in school, and it's reporting on those marketing campaigns that you're working on. And really, the goal here is to identify your superstar marketing channels. Those are the ones that are really the top performers, and you want to invest more in those, obviously. But like equally important is to find the campaigns that are not working so well, and either improve on them if you can, or reallocate that budget that you're putting into the campaigns that are not working so well into the campaigns that are working well. The last key takeaway here is the fact that traffic does not equal sales. A lot of people get really hung up on the marketing channel that will drive the most traffic to their website. That's not really the goal here. The goal is not just to send traffic to your site. You also want that traffic to convert into leads and actual sales. And when I say leads, that could be somebody picking up the phone and calling you from the number on the site. Maybe it's a form on your site that they fill out. So whatever that action is, you want to be tracking that conversion, that lead, and be able to find which marketing channels are sending the most leads and sales for your business. Now, there are other tools out there. So why use Google Analytics? First of all, it's free. Who doesn't love that? It also works well with others. By that, I mean it works with a lot of other tools that you might be using. For example, Google Ads. It integrates with Google Ads. It also integrates with Search Console. So if you're familiar with SEO, search engine optimization, and you're using Search Console, you'll want to link it up to Google Analytics, and then that data will work together. It also, just right out of the box, will do a lot of tracking as far as referral tracking and determining traffic from social media sites. So it can do a lot right out of the box, and we're going to talk later on about how to improve the accuracy of the tracking, because it's not always great, but it does work well. And then I think probably the most important thing is that it's not going to go anywhere. At least that's my prediction. Google's pretty established in the space, and I think this is a really important factor, because you're going to put a lot of the data for your business into this tool. And if you choose a different tool with another company that maybe doesn't have the same resources, maybe they go out of business in 5 years, it's going to be pretty annoying to then have to transfer all of that data to another analytics platform. So to me, that's important, that Google's not likely going anywhere, and they're continually investing in their analytics tool, always making updates and improvements, which is good to see. All right, so let's first start by talking about how to set up Google Analytics correctly. I've audited a lot of accounts, and unfortunately, a lot of businesses don't have analytics set up correctly, and because of that, you can't run the reports and make smart decisions, and we're going to talk about those reports later on. So the first step is pretty straightforward. Most businesses get this correct. You just have to create an account at google.com/analytics. So it's pretty straightforward. Just fill in the form. The final step, Google tells you, all right, here's your code, and then you have to put it on every single page of your site. So that is a step that I've seen businesses fail to put the code on every page. And it's really important because if the code is not on a page, Google Analytics is not going to track any traffic to or from that page. So here's the code. Google did switch. They've continually been making updates here. On their latest iteration, they're using the global site tag, which is the code here. Your code might look different if you're using one of the older versions, but it's really just a matter of copying this code and, again, putting this on every single page of your site. I did see some more comments coming in here. All right, so Carolina, you mentioned using Tag Manager. I do want to mention that now. If you're using Tag Manager is just some code that you put on your site that allows you to then add additional tags like this Google Analytics tag. It allows you to add code and tags to your site without having to edit your actual site. So it kind of eliminates the need to go to a developer. You can just go into Tag Manager and edit the code yourself. And if you do that, you would add, if you have Google Tag Manager installed, you would be updating the code through Google Tag Manager. If you're not using Tag Manager, then you're going to add this directly to your site. Melissa asked, does code go on the header of the website or on each individual page? Yes, it goes in the head section of the site. So if you're familiar with HTML, there's the header of the page and the body of the page, and this code should be in the head of the page. Diane asked, is there any benefit or need to update to the latest Google Analytics code? So if you're really outdated, and your code is, I think the really outdated code is ga.js, and then they moved to analytics.js, and now they're using this global site tag. So if you're using a really outdated code, I would recommend upgrading. The basic functionality of Google Analytics will still work with the old code, but some of the new functionality that Google's rolling out does not work if you're using the old version of the code. Sean said G-tag in the global site header still works to cover the entire site. So that brings up another important point. So if you have if you're using a content management system, a CMS like WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, those types of websites have a master header.php file or some kind of master header template file, and you can just edit that one file, and then that gets applied to every single page. Now, if you're not familiar with that and none of that just made sense, I highly recommend you talk to your developer and just make sure someone with experience with your site gets the code added correctly. It is possible that your site was developed and you have multiple header template files, in which case you would need to edit all of those. All right, so I am going to circle back to questions. There's just a lot coming in, and I want to make sure we get through everything rather than just staying on that first slide. So the second step here is to set up goals. So I already mentioned traffic does not equal sales, so you can't just track the traffic. And right out of the box, when you get Google Analytics installed, it's going to track traffic, but it's not going to track any of your conversions, and that's going to really hurt your ability to determine which marketing channels are really working. So as far as a website conversion, I mentioned this, it could be an online sale. If you have an e-commerce site, it might be a contact form submission. It could be somebody requesting a free report, phone calls. And then what I would highly recommend, there are multiple different types of goals that you can set up, but at a minimum, you want to set up what are called destination goals. And as far as setting those up, what happened there? My image is lost. That is interesting. So my image just got removed from the slide. I apologize for that. As a backup, though, I'm just going to do a live example here. So I'll just pull in a demo account here, go to goals. So as far as setting up a destination goal, I'm in admin, goals, new goal. And the image I had just walked you through this, but this live demo will work. What I typically do is go custom. Google tries to make it easy for you by giving you some options here. I like to just click custom and do it all manually here. And the example I'll use is a Google Analytics checklist request. So the goal here, I want to measure how many people request our Google Analytics checklist. Again, I'm going to create a destination goal. Now, here's where it's really important to edit this equals to begins with. And this is a destination goal, so we're going to provide Google Analytics with the thank you page of the form we're tracking. So I have that. I'll just copy this in just a second. Okay, so the thank you page URL is this URL here. So you don't have to put in your domain. That's actually what the instructions here are saying. So you don't have to put your domain or www.yourdomain.com. Just everything after that. So the /, this is the URL. And I'm putting begins with because a lot of forms will append the URL with some custom information. For example, it might put an ID. So everyone that completes that form might get, a question mark, ID equals, and just a number. And it's a unique number for everyone. And if that's the case, and you put this to equals to, that's not going to ever work because it's always going to have a question mark, ID, and then some numbers. But if you make this begins with, that ensures it will always track correctly, because as long as somebody makes it to this URL and it begins with that, it doesn't matter what's after that URL if your form starts adding some custom code. So use begins with, put the thank you page URL. In our case, there's no value. If you were tracking a sale, you could put a value of that sale. And if you wanted to, you could set up a funnel. Funnels are nice because then you can see the conversion rate from different pages. So you could, let's say there's multiple pages in requesting your checklist, you would then input, starting with the first page, step 1, you'd put that URL in here, and then you can add multiple steps. And then the last step is verify. You just click that button, confirm that it is in fact tracking the correct page. Google Analytics will tell you how many people went to that page in the past 7 days. It'll actually give you a conversion rate, and then you just click save. All right, so hopefully the other images are not broken here. Kira said I had a consultant recommend that I set up destination goals using regx, which is regular expressions, rather than begins with. What's the difference? So regular expressions is just a more advanced way to set up a conversion. If you're familiar with coding, regular expressions are like shortcuts. For example, if you wanted to track pages that maybe it said thank you -1 and then you have a thank you -2, you could have a regular expression that tracks thank you -any number. There's a way to code that and tell Google Analytics, I want to track a page that has the word thank you and then a number after it. So it's just it gets a little bit more complicated to do it that way, but it's certainly a good way to do it, and in some cases it's the only way to do it, depending on what you're trying to track and how the pages are set up. All right, next I want to talk about the URL builder. So Google Analytics, I mentioned, just right out of the box will track all of your traffic. However, it's not going to properly track all of your traffic unless you help Google Analytics. So if you go to Google, literally just go to google.com and Google URL builder, then you will get this link. And again, you're going to get a copy of these slides, so you'll have this link handy, and you can just click right on it. And that's going to show you a form, and when you fill out the form, it'll give you a URL, and you'll copy and paste that URL. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. And then you use this URL in the different marketing campaigns that you're promoting. So here's a screenshot of the URL builder. And you can see the first field is website URL. And again, the example here is the Google Analytics checklist. So you just literally copy and paste that URL. And the campaign source, in this case, I put MYM series, so Master Your Marketing series. It's really whatever you want to use, you can put as the campaign source. You can see Google's examples are Google newsletter. It's, again, whatever you want to name it, you can name it. And then campaign medium is the type of traffic. And you can see the examples there that Google's giving you. CPC is cost per click, so that's pay-per-click advertising. For example, if you're doing Google ads, that's going to be CPC traffic. You'd want to use CPC as the medium. Banner, that's for banner advertising, display ads. And then email, if you're doing any type of email marketing, the medium you'd want to enter is email. And when I show you the reports later, this will all make sense, and the way you set this up, it'll then properly populate in the reports. And if you label everything correctly, all of the email traffic will get reported in your email report, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And then you can also give it a campaign name, and that allows you to then further dig into your data. For example, if we do multiple webinars, we might have a lot of traffic from the campaign medium webinar, and then you could dig in and dissect that data or segment that data by the campaign, in which case I put in here Google Analytics checklist. So once you do that, at the bottom of the form, it gives you the URL, and you can see here it says share the generated campaign URL. And you can see it's a pretty ugly URL now. It's got the start of the URL is the actual URL that I put in there, mainstreetroi.com/Google Analytics checklist, question mark, UTM source, and then you can see UTM medium and UTM campaign. So from here, you can just copy the URL, and that is now the tracking URL. If you send somebody to that page, then Google Analytics will know that the source was MYM series, it was the medium webinar, and that the campaign was Google Analytics checklist. So you're explicitly telling Google Analytics, this is where this traffic came from. And here is the example. So just a reminder, I mentioned this earlier, that the fields, so source, medium, and campaign, those are all going to match the reports in Google Analytics. So when we start getting into the reporting, this will make more sense if you're not following. But what you tell Google is the medium, that will allow you then to report on whatever it is that you said was the medium, in this case, webinar. So these are going to match in the analytics reports. And just to highlight this, to kind of break down the URL, you've got the UTM source. So again, I just typed in MYM series. That %20, just ignore that. That's just code for space, because I put MYM space series. UTM medium here is webinar. And then again, the UTM campaign is Google Analytics checklist. So Edward said, so out of the box, GA doesn't tell you where traffic is coming from. So that, no, out of the box, Google Analytics will track the traffic. However, it does not always know where the traffic came from. And I was going to go through this when we get to the reports, but I'll just explain right now that if Google doesn't know where the traffic came from, that will be considered direct traffic. For example, if you send emails to your list and some of those subscribers use Microsoft Outlook, they will get the email in Microsoft Outlook. They'll click the link, and then the way that Microsoft Outlook works is it will open up a browser window and send that person straight to that page. Now, from Google Analytics perspective, that looks like direct traffic. It looks like someone literally opened up a browser and went straight to your page. There's no way for Google Analytics to know that that was actually email traffic. So that's one example. There's lots of others where you really need to help Google Analytics so that the tool knows where that traffic actually came from. All right, the fourth step here is to add e-commerce tracking. And this is obviously only relevant if you have an e-commerce business or if you have a website where you take online orders. So in the report I'll show you soon, you'll see revenue data, and this will allow you to actually calculate return on investment from each of your marketing channels. So you'll see the sales revenue, for example, from organic search, paid search ads, social media. You can see that as long as you have e-commerce tracking set up in analytics. So to get this set up, there's really two steps. You have to turn it on in the admin area of Google Analytics. That's really simple. You just click a button. But then you do need to add some code. and this gets pretty technical. So you would want to have a developer go to this URL. Again, you'll get a copy of this, so you'll be able to click right on that link, or you can just Google e-commerce analytics and have your developer research it. It's going to require some JavaScript code that needs to be added to your site that then tracks the orders and sends the order data to Google Analytics. Now, I did say, or I did name this webinar, how to track all of your marketing channels. So what about offline campaigns like print, radio, TV, and direct mail? And the answer is you can actually track traffic from those sources. So first and foremost, you would need to have some kind of call to action in those campaigns to go to a landing page on your site. So it only makes sense if you're directing those prospects to your site, and then you'll be able to track it from those campaigns as long as you use a vanity URL. So you would want to get something like, so if we just stick with our same example here, you could go and buy a domain like getfreeanalyticschecklist.com. Or let's just say that's what you're promoting, and you're doing a direct mail campaign, and the call to action is to go to this URL, getfreeanalyticschecklist.com. So you'd get that vanity URL. You would then use the URL builder, and then so in this example, I actually said it was a TV ad. So in the TV commercial, the person would say, just go to getfreeanalyticschecklist.com. So you'd go to the URL builder, make sure that the medium is TV, and then you would set up domain forwarding for that domain, and you'd have that forward to the tracking URL that you create in the URL builder. So we have a vanity URL that we use for our email newsletter. It's mainstreetmarketingtips.com. So this is a good example just to kind of see it in action here. So we don't have a TV commercial, but we could have a TV commercial that would say, just go to mainstreetmarketingtips.com to subscribe to our newsletter. So let's say we had that TV commercial. If people then go to mainstreetmarketingtips.com, they will automatically get redirected to mainstreetroi.com because we have domain forwarding set up. And then the page that they get redirected to, we have UTM parameters on there. So in our case, this is, you can see the URL here where it's got UTM source mainstreetmarketingtips.com. In this case, the medium is email because we use this in email, and then the campaign is email newsletter sign up. But hopefully you can see how you could just change that medium to be direct mail. It could be radio, it could be TV, print, whatever that medium is. You could just make that the URL, the tracking URL, and then when you go and buy a vanity domain, let's just say you buy it at GoDaddy, you don't have to buy hosting or anything. You just get a domain, and then you set up what's called domain forwarding, and you forward that domain to the tracking URL. All right, so at this point, you are now ready to run reports. The first thing I want to cover is which metrics are important. This is a big mistake I see. It's just very common, or a common pitfall, I'll say, where people are looking at aggregate data. And if you get anything out of this presentation, hopefully you will remember this. You want to avoid looking at your aggregate metrics. They really don't help you at all. So aggregate metrics are all of your monthly website traffic. Let's just say your average bounce rate across all of your marketing channels or average time on site. So a lot of people will get hung up on these metrics, but again, these are aggregate metrics across all of your marketing channels, so they aren't actionable. So rather than aggregate data, you want to look at channel-specific data in analytics. And some examples of channel metrics are, you could look at your organic search traffic trends over time. So that would be your SEO traffic. It might be growing or declining. You could look at your direct mail traffic conversion rates. If you are doing direct mail and sending people to that Vanity URL like we just talked about. You could take a look at revenue from let's just say the October email promotion that you ran last fall, or any specific promotion. You can drill down into that particular channel or that promotion. You can also look at number of conversions per marketing channel. Those are just some examples. So hopefully that makes sense now. The difference between aggregate data, which is just all of the metrics rolled into one number, or all of the marketing channels rolled into one number. Again, that doesn't tell you much. You really need to dive into each marketing channel separately. So an example problem here, this is just something I hear very often. A lot of businesses will get hung up on the bounce rate. And let's just say the website bounce rate increased from 20% to 50% in a month, and you're wondering what the heck happened. So to answer that question, you want to dig in to the channel metrics. So you can't just look at all of the website traffic and just try to make a decision based on the aggregate data across all channels. You need to dig into each channel and then specifically answer the question, did the bounce rate increase for every channel? So if it increased for every channel, then that's a signal that something happened. You probably made a change to your site that just overall negatively impacted all of the traffic. Now, it could be the case, or it could be that just a couple channels increased and actually other channels decreased. Now, within a specific channel, did the bounce rates increase for all of the devices? So that's another way to slice the data. So it might be a case where the bounce rate increased dramatically for mobile, but stayed the same or even improved for desktop, in which case, obviously, then it's more of a mobile-specific issue. So the answers, again, are found in the channel report. So 3 steps I recommend. First, start with a high-level overview of your marketing. That's going to be the top marketing channels by traffic, by behavior, and by conversions. Then review the trends over time for each of those marketing channels. And then dive in and take a look at the top landing pages. So look at specific pages within those marketing channels. So the first report is going to be the channels report in Google Analytics. This is my favorite report by far. So it rolls up all of the traffic per medium. So all of the, let's say you have a lot of email marketing, it'll roll up all of the email campaigns that you're running and show all of the data on one line for your email channel. So to run this report, you're going to go to acquisition and then all traffic channels. And just a reminder that you need to be using the URL builder if you want to accurately track your marketing. Excuse me. Okay, good. This screenshot worked. Not sure what happened with that other one. So the red arrow there is pointing to the left navigation. Again, it's acquisition, all traffic, and then channels. And then within channels, you can scroll down underneath the graph. Excuse me. You can see each channel has its own row. So in this example, we've got paid search has a row. We have other, which is a good example of, an area that needs to be improved because it's not getting categorized properly. We have referral traffic. So that's traffic from other websites. We have email. Organic search is SEO. Direct traffic, I already mentioned. That could be people clicking on. Another example is if somebody clicks on a link in a PDF and it goes to your website, that's going to look like direct traffic. So tomorrow you're going to get the slides for this presentation. And if you click on a link and it goes to our website, Google Analytics by default will track that as direct traffic. So you can see each row is the different marketing channel. And sessions is basically visits to the site. In the middle, you have behavior. That's where you can see the bounce rate. You can see pages per session or pages per visit, and then average session duration, which is basically average time on site. And you can see it per each channel. So this is a great example because you can see bounce rate is 46%. And if we scroll down, referral traffic actually has a low bounce rate of 27%. So really no issues with that traffic. On the high end, we see 88% with that other advertising. And then organic search, 68, almost 69%. So that's really skewing the bounce rate. So if all you did was look at the aggregate bounce rate, you wouldn't know that you actually do have a high bounce rate looking at the other advertising row and SEO. Steph just said, I don't see channels as an option under acquisition in GA. Did I miss why this could be the case? So you should definitely see that as an option. It's under, you just need to make sure you're looking at acquisition. Just go back. So on the left there, there's audience, and then acquisition, and then you click on that. Then you have to click on all traffic, and then it's within all traffic. It's called channels. All right, and then finally, all the way to the right is conversions, and Google Analytics gives you two options. You can report on goals, or you can select e-commerce, and you can see with this screenshot, I selected e-commerce just because it's a little bit more interesting than just goals. A lot of times the goals won't have any revenue data. So with your business, you might be just tracking the leads. So you would just be tracking goal completions. But for this example, we've got e-commerce. So we're actually tracking what they call transactions or sales, as well as the revenue. And I mentioned earlier, you can calculate return on investment per marketing channel. So you can see how much revenue you're generating from paid search versus SEO versus your email marketing or social media. And you can also see how the conversion rate differs across marketing channels. Kira asked, what is the display channel? Display is a type of advertising. So there's search advertising, where you're advertising when people are searching, like Google Ads search campaigns that are targeting people searching in Google Ads or searching in Google, and then display campaigns. Though you might think of them more as like banner ads, where you're surfing around online and you see a nice banner image. You can also use text ads for display, but those are they're ads that are shown on websites, not when people are searching, when people are just surfing around. Okay, next. So that was just looking at the specific marketing channels. So I love this report. It's a nice high-level overview of how each of your channels are performing. And then you can dig into a specific channel and look at the trends over time. So to do that, you just click on one of those channels. So if you click on that top one, paid search, that will automatically put you into the channel-specific report for paid search. And then as an advanced tactic, you can then compare two metrics and see the trends of those two metrics over time. So here is an example where I just clicked right on paid search. So at the top, you can see it's telling us we're in default channel grouping paid search. And then I added the second data point here, which is e-commerce conversion rate. So we're seeing over time the trend for sessions or visits versus the conversion rate. The conversion rate is just number of conversions divided by the number of visits. And the big question here, what's wrong with this picture? So if you're looking at that trend, so the dark blue is visits, and you can see that was pretty steady, and then all of a sudden around the middle, that starts going up. So again, this is paid search, so it's advertising. Looks like the budget was increased, so we start getting more and more traffic. And then let's look at the e-commerce conversion rate. That's pretty steady as well, and then it actually goes down pretty much the mirror image of the visits or sessions. So looks like, looking at that graph, we've got increase in budget, more traffic, and conversely a decrease in conversion rate, which is obviously not what you want to see. You would want to see that conversion rate stays steady as you're increasing that budget, increasing the traffic. So that's definitely an indication that something went wrong there when the budget was increased. Here's a similar graph, just looking at a different channel here, which is display, looking at sessions versus bounce rate. Similar question, what's wrong with this picture? Looks like something was possibly edited on the site. Maybe the landing pages changed. Maybe the targeting for those ads changed. So something happened that caused the bounce rate to increase. And then you can see it increased and then pretty much stayed consistently at that new level. So something changed, and you'll be able to identify that by looking at these trends over time. Armando asked what time is recommended to analyze the channels. Obviously, the more data you have, the better. But as far as the time frame to see trends, it's going to just depend on how much traffic you're getting, and if you're trying to look at trends for conversions, that's going to depend on how many conversions you're getting on a daily basis, weekly, or even monthly. if you don't have much data, then unfortunately you're not going to be able to spot the trends. And if that's the case, then you would have to open up the time frame. All right, so third reporting area I would check is the top landing pages by channel. So these are going to be the most important pages. So just to take a step back, we identified the most important channels by looking at the channels report, and then we dug in, looked at the trends over time, and you want to keep an eye on that to identify any issues or opportunities to improve. And then within your top channels, you obviously want to look at the most important pages that are getting the most traffic within those channels. So that's what we're doing here. And you'll look at the landing pages by going to behavior, site content, and then landing pages. And as an advanced tactic, I'm going to show you how to add a segment, or actually multiple segments, and then you can see the data for each landing page. You can see it segmented out by the channel that you want to review. So here's an example showing you on the left-hand column, behavior, and then site content, and then landing pages. And then at the top, there's a button that says Add Segment. You want to click on that button. And then for this example, I'm just adding organic traffic and paid traffic. So you can add other traffic. You can segment by a lot of different data points. It's not just by marketing channel. You can also segment by demographics. There's a lot of advanced segmenting that you can do, but just from a high level, I'm going to show you segmenting by marketing channel. And then I blurred out the actual URLs, but you can still see that the chart here, the graph, the table is showing you a row for each URL, and then below each URL, it has a row for each segment. In this case, I'm segmenting by organic traffic and paid traffic. So the second URL in this example is the home page, and you can see organic traffic sessions. Here we go. You can see the sessions, the behavior. So you can see bounce rate is actually quite different, organic traffic versus paid traffic. And then conversions and conversion rate. Actually pretty interesting that the conversion rate is higher for paid traffic, which indicates that they've got better targeting with their paid traffic than they do with their organic SEO traffic. So there's opportunity to improve on that SEO traffic and try to increase that conversion rate. But you want to do that. You can do that within other marketing channels as well, and then identify again the top landing pages for a different marketing channel, and identify opportunities to improve those pages. All right, so a quick recap of what we just went through. We talked about, first and foremost, adding the Google Analytics code to every page. That's obviously important. Then setting up goals so you can track not only traffic, but also conversions from that traffic. And then we talked about the URL builder so that you can track different marketing channels accurately. Most importantly, if you're doing email marketing campaigns, you absolutely want to use the URL builder for every single link in your email campaign, and that way you're tracking that correctly. If you have an e-commerce site, then make sure you set up e-commerce analytics. As far as tracking offline campaigns, I recommend you set up a Vanity domain and then forward that domain to a URL on your website that has the tracking parameters from the URL builder. Then we talked about reviewing your channels report, reviewing the trends within each channel, and then looking at the landing page performance within each channel. So I did promise a free gift, and I would highly recommend going and getting our Google Analytics checklist. You can go to mainstreetroi.com/Google-Analytics-checklist. Again, you'll get a copy of these slides if you want to just click on the link when you get the copy. And then I know I missed a lot of questions here, so I'm going to circle back. Okay. All right, so Michael had a long question here. So he said, how to effectively track the steps in an e-commerce's checkout process? I understand ticking off e-commerce tracking isn't enough. What types of custom work needs to take place to effectively track this? So to track your e-commerce sales, you need to set up e-commerce analytics. That requires two steps. One is turning it on in your admin area, Google Analytics admin. You turn that on, and then you do need to add code to the website. Specifically, it needs to be added to the thank you page after someone has completed an order. And there is specific code, JavaScript code, that needs to send the order information from your site to Google Analytics. And in the slides, I included a link to Google's instructions to get that set up. It's pretty advanced, so you would want a developer that's very comfortable writing JavaScript code and very comfortable with your e-commerce platform. You'd want that person to set that up. Alicia, can you please talk to the use of neutral email accounts and not using their personal email accounts for GA and Google Search Console? Alicia, if you could clarify what you would like me to talk about there, that'd be great, and I can address it. Aaron asked if you have a blog, should you put the analytics code on every blog post? So Aaron, if you could clarify, do you have a blog on your domain? So if that's the case, then absolutely, you'll put the same Google Analytics code on your domain. Now, if you have a separate domain that you're blogging from, then you may want to have a separate analytics property for that domain. It really depends how you want to set that up. You could have a separate Google Analytics property and track that separately, or you can install the same code on both of your domains, and then you need to set up what's called cross-domain tracking, which gets a little technical, but it's not super complex to set up, but you would want a developer to help you get that set up. And that allows you to track traffic from your site to another domain and even back to your site and be able to track that correctly. Now, if you don't set up cross-domain tracking, I mean, when someone leaves your website and goes to a different domain, it looks like an exit. And then if somebody comes back, it looks like a new session. But if you set up cross-domain tracking, you could track one person crossing domains and coming back as one session or one person. All right, Liz said I use the Yoast plugin in WordPress. There's not an option to add to every page. Does Yoast automatically do this? I do have traffic flow analysis, which would suggest that I'm tracking on every page. So the short answer, Liz, is you probably have that set up correctly. However, it is possible that there are some pages where it's outside of the Yoast plugin. So it just depends on how that site was set up, and I would just double check with your developer to make sure that you're not missing any pages. Deb said you mentioned GA changes code from time to time. Do we need to update, change our code when Google makes changes, or are we good once we have the codes added? So Deb, Google Analytics has actually changed. So I got started in 2006, and back then I think the code that you added to the site had a JavaScript file called ga.js. Then they switched it, I forget when, to analytics.js. And Google did instruct everyone to change the code on their site. So the short answer is yes, when Google changes, you may have to update the code on your site. It really just depends on how drastically the code has changed and whether Google's going to support that old code. Don said, what if you are using a platform like Shopify or BigCommerce? So I believe that's in reference to e-commerce analytics, and I believe BigCommerce has instructions specifically how to get e-commerce analytics set up in BigCommerce. So if you're using an off-the-shelf e-commerce tool, then highly recommend reaching out to their support and ask them, how do I get e-commerce analytics set up? They'll likely have documentation that they can send to you. In some cases, it's literally as easy as just turning it on in your account, and that's obviously great. But in other cases, it does require some code to be added. Let's see here. A lot of these I answered. Rafat said, do I have to do this if you're putting referral codes in from the back end? So if I'm interpreting that correctly, you are tracking, if you have an e-commerce site, you're using referral codes when people order, in which case you can then see in your back end how many sales came from different referral sources. So that brings up a really good point where we're talking about Google Analytics and running analysis on your different marketing channels. However, that doesn't tell you where a specific customer came from. To get that data, you would need to have some way to track that in your back end. Google Analytics is, they actually tell you in the terms of service, they don't want you to be tracking individuals and personally identifying information in their tool. So you really want to think of the Google Analytics data as anonymous data. And then if you want to actually identify where a customer came from in your CRM or in your shopping cart, you would need to have a way to send that data from your website into your back end. And I believe, Rafat, that's what you're referring to. And the short answer is you want to do both. Ideally, you're sending that data to your back end, but you will also want to have Google Analytics set up, because then you can run the analysis across all of your different marketing channels and also see the behavior of all of the traffic that didn't actually become customers. Let's see. Edward said, put another way, I'm sorry if you just answered this. If I put a banner ad on another website and do not use a tracking URL, will GA know automatically which site the click came from? So if you're doing banner advertising, and let's just say you're doing a media buy, so you're not using like Google Ads or some other ad network. If you just have a raw link on another website and a person clicks on that and goes to your site, it's going to show up as referral traffic. If the only way that people could come from that site is through your banner ad, then you're probably fine. However, I would highly recommend using the URL builder and making the medium CPC if it's cost per click. CPM is the annotation to say that it's cost per 1,000 impressions. You could use that as the medium, and that way it's going to get categorized in Google Analytics as paid traffic rather than showing up as organic referral traffic, which would be a little confusing since you're paying for that traffic. So to answer your question, I would definitely use URL Builder. However, Google Analytics will know that the traffic came from that site. By default, it's just going to show as referral. Carolina, you asked, are you going to cover how we can use analytics to capture better SEO data? First step there would be to link up Google Analytics and Search Console. In that way, you'll have SEO data flowing into Google Analytics, and you can go into the search engine optimization reports and specifically look at the query report to see which keywords you're ranking for. You can see the average position and impressions and clicks. And then you can also look at the search engine optimization landing page report to see which pages are ranking and see data specific to those pages. Randy asked, what is the best way to track phone calls from your website without displaying a different phone number in your website? So the best way to track phone calls is dynamic number insertion. Well, just to take a step back, if you literally do not want to display a different number, you can't track. I mean, you could track mobile clicks on the phone number, but the only way to track calls from your website and match it to a specific marketing channel, the way to do that is dynamic number insertion, or DNI. And the way it works is you show the regular phone number on your site, and then there's JavaScript code that dynamically changes the phone number just to specific visitors. And you can have that set up so that it only changes the phone number for, let's say, your paid traffic. And that way you can track how many calls were made from your paid campaigns, or you could have it changing for specific referral sites or SEO traffic. You would set it up however you want as far as what you want to track, and then it dynamically changes just for the people who are coming to your site from those sources. Diane said, on our Drupal CMS, we use 301 redirects to create vanity URLs. I assume these are tracked with no issues. So you can certainly use vanity URLs, and just to clarify the terminology I'm using, I like to use vanity domains for offline marketing like print, TV, radio, and direct mail. And the reason for that is studies have shown if you put a link in marketing material, a certain percentage are just going to go to the domain. So if it's yourdomain.com/get my free book, some people are just going to go to yourdomain.com, and then you obviously miss out on tracking that traffic. So the workaround there is just to get a domain for like 10 or 15 bucks from GoDaddy and set up domain forwarding. And that way, the only way that traffic can get and actually go to that call to action is to type in that domain. Dylan asked, what exactly is bounce rate? So bounce rate, just think of a ball bouncing off a wall, and that's what the visitor is doing. They're going to your site, they're landing on one page, and then they're bouncing right off, they're leaving. So the difference between bounces and exits are bounces, they just go to one page and they leave, that's a bounce. And an exit is they go to your site, they click around, and then they eventually will exit on a certain page. So that will be the page that they exited. But once somebody goes to your site and clicks to another page, they're not a bounce. They can't ever bounce. Okay, just going through the list here. Okay, Dylan said, how would we be able to track leads from specific websites that we use to help boost SEO to see what websites are bringing us leads and which are not? So different website traffic is going to show up as referral traffic. So if you start at the channels report, you'll see you have a certain amount of traffic from referrals. Click on referrals from that report, and that jumps into all of your referral traffic, and it will actually show you the URLs of the pages that are referring you traffic. So that would show you which pages are driving traffic and which are driving leads. So Edward said, how do the channels get created, named? Is it just a function of creating the tracking URL? So by default, Google is going to have some basic channels like organic search, paid search, referral, email. But then you can create your own as well using the URL builder. And Kira asked, does retargeting, remarketing fall under that category? Referencing the display channel. So there's different kinds of remarketing and retargeting. So that's kind of a tricky question. There's remarketing for search, where you can target audiences with search ads. That would still be considered paid search. And then there's remarketing on the display network, and that would show up as display advertising in your channels. And you can specify exactly how you want that to show up by tagging all of your URLs in your ad campaigns. Excuse me. So that's really up to you if you want to let Google decide how to categorize it, or you could specifically categorize it. You could literally call it retargeting if you wanted to. Nicholas, I'm not sure about your question. Nicholas said, is there a clever way to demo the correlation with sales and conversions when you don't have access to the sales? If you could just follow up to clarify what you're looking for, that'd be great. All right. A lot of these I got through already. Michael asked a good question. So what's the difference between a goal and an event? So an event could be a click on your website. That could be an event. It could be playing a video. And then you can take that a step further and set up a goal that matches that event. For example, you could have a goal where you want to track when people, let's say they click on a link to a PDF. Let's just say you're in the medical industry and you have like a PDF where the patient has to fill out information and you want to track that as a goal. You would set up an event that fires when somebody clicks that link. And then in Google Analytics, you would set up a goal that is triggered by that event. And that way you can tie you can track how many people from different marketing channels actually click that link. Aaron, sorry for the confusion there. When I was mentioning direct traffic, I was saying that's when Google Analytics does not know where the traffic came from because it looks like direct traffic. So there would be no UTM parameters. There'd be no source, no medium. Okay, Robert said if you have a free website with one call to action button calculating something for the user, how can you easily set up a Google Analytics goal? So if there's one button, ideally that button was submitting a form and you could have that redirect to a thank you page, and that would then be a destination goal. If there's no way to do that, then you would use an event like I just mentioned, where the button would trigger a click event, and then you would set up a goal tied to that event. So Nicholas, I'm not sure what you're looking for here. You said, what is your go-to reference for managers that are disbelievers in paid search to bring new leads? If you're referring to information on how to make paid search work, we have lots of information on our site as far as how to set up a good search campaign in Google Ads. We have a Google Ads checklist that I would recommend, and then we have a paid course that walks through all of the steps to set up a profitable Google Ads campaign. Oh, Alicia clarified the Google Analytics, Google Search with personal email accounts. So if you do work for an agency or you're a consultant, so you don't need your clients' logins to get into Google Analytics or Search Console. You just need them to add you to the account. There's a way to, your client would then go into Google Analytics and add you as a user. And they can do that within Analytics as well as Search Console. Maria, when I mentioned offline campaigns, I just meant TV, print ads, radio ads, and direct mail. That's what I'm considering offline or off of the internet. Tanesha, yes, we are recording, and we'll send the replay as well as the slides tomorrow afternoon. David, you're welcome. Carolina asked, how do we get organic keywords displayed in Google Analytics? I didn't go through this, but you would want to link up Search Console with Google Analytics. It does require that separate tool, Search Console. You need to get that set up, get your website verified, and then you link it up with Google Analytics, and then you are then able to see the search terms within Google Analytics. And Carolina, as far as the user ID, that's a good thing to set up if people are logging into your website. And if that's the case, each person that logs in gets a unique user ID, and then you're able to track that behavior within Google Analytics. So you can actually track user-specific behavior. And that's really only relevant for like membership-type websites where people are logging into their accounts. And then Carolina, you mentioned using live chat with user ID. I have not tried to do that, but again, to clarify, you would have to have somebody log into an account, and then on your end, you need to generate a user ID to then track those folks. If you're just trying to track where somebody came from and send that through the live chat, you'd want to talk to the live chat support and see if there's a way to capture that information and send it through the live chat. For example, you can determine where people came from pretty easily on your website. A developer can help you write that code, and then you would need a way to send the data through the live chat. So it's kind of outside the scope of Google Analytics, just getting into more general tracking there. So Kira said, if I'm using Google Tag Manager, do I also need to use Google Analytics? So I want to be very clear that Google Tag Manager is not tracking code. Think of Google Tag Manager as just a tool to add code to your website. It's like, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. I'm failing to come up with one, but basically you have your website, and right now the only way to add Google Analytics tracking code is to go into your website and add the code, and you might not be comfortable doing that. So there's a tool called Google Tag Manager where your developer just adds Google Tag Manager to your website. Now anyone that doesn't have technical skills can log into Google Tag Manager and add code in Google Tag Manager, and then Google Tag Manager automatically applies it to the website. So it's just an easy way for a non-technical person to add something like Google Analytics to a website. The reason it's called Google Tag Manager, there's lots of tags that you might need to add to your site. For example, if you're doing Facebook ads, there'd be a Facebook ads pixel that you'd want to add. If you're doing Bing ads, there's a Bing ads pixel. If you're doing Google ads, you then have Google ads conversion tracking pixels and remarketing pixels. So there's all this code, and every time you need to add it to your site, you either need to log into your website and make edits to your site, or you add Google Tag Manager one time on your site, and then you just log into Google Tag Manager and add all of those codes. All right. John, looks like you were an hour late, so yes, you did miss everything, and we'll be sending the replay tomorrow afternoon. Should have known this question would come up. Takita asked, are the conversions in Google Ads the same as the conversions in Google Analytics? Should we track Google Ads conversions from Google Analytics or Google Ads? My strong preference is to use Google Ads conversion tracking to track your Google Ads conversions. To properly answer that, I need to introduce attribution, which is going to get a little bit technical here, but it is important. So attribution, all that means is how do you attribute a conversion back to its source, especially if there's multiple touch points in the path to the conversion. Excuse me. So the example I'll use, let's say yesterday I clicked on an ad. I clicked on your ad. I went to your website and I liked what I saw, but I didn't have time to make a purchase, so I left. Today, I remembered your business name. I Googled it. I clicked on your organic link, went to your website, and I made a purchase. In Google Analytics, by default, they have what's called last click attribution. Google Analytics is going to consider that example an organic search sale. However, in Google Ads, if you have Google Ads conversion tracking set up, Google Ads uses what's called first click. Because I clicked on an ad yesterday and then I converted, Google Ads is going to say that that was a Google Ads conversion, and it will track it as a conversion. So you can obviously see the problem here. There's a discrepancy. Google Ads is saying they had a Google Ads conversion, and it actually ties it to the date of the click. So the conversion actually is yesterday, even though I made my purchase today. The first click was yesterday. And then Google Analytics is saying there was a sale today, and it came from organic search. This causes a lot of confusion. I realize it is confusing, and it's all because of attribution and the different models that you can use to attribute a sale back to its source. The reason I recommend using Google Ads conversion tracking is because I consider what just happened in my example, that sale was generated from Google Ads, and I wouldn't want to miss out on that data because I would want to use that data to optimize the Google Ads campaign. And if you use Google Analytics to track your conversions, you're going to miss out on that data, and you would potentially be missing opportunities to drive more sales by increasing your bids or increasing your budget on campaigns that are in fact originally driving sales for your business. So Jacob said, should you track which pages of your website lead traffic to your shop or lead to a sale? So yes, that comes down to e-commerce tracking. If you set up e-commerce tracking properly, you would then be able to see which pages, for example, which landing pages are ultimately driving sales. Scott, you said if you set up PPC ads through Google, so Google Ads, should you set up a different channel in analytics? So with Google Ads, you can actually link up your Google Ads account with Google Analytics, and that will automatically match them up so that the traffic is tracked properly. So you don't have to add the UTM parameters using the URL builder, you could do that, but Google does make it easier by allowing you to link up the accounts, and then once you've linked it up, Google will take care of the tracking it properly. Okay. Almost done here. I know we're out of time. Let me just get through the rest of these. Let's see. So Nicholas, you just clarified your question. Sales or revenue against conversions on site. Ideally, it's best to have all the data from visit to sale, but sometimes clients don't share that number. I think you're referring to leads then turning into sales. Since you're not, this must not be a e-commerce site. So being able to match up the leads and knowing which actually turned into sales, that gets into offline tracking. My recommendation, and what we do with clients that will allow it, we'll set up a spreadsheet and track the data and share that between our companies, where we know which leads came in, and then they can identify which ones turned into sales, and then we can track that back to the actual source. Okay, Nikita, I already answered that question. So Carolina, in organic search, if you click into that and then try to see the keywords, you're not going to see the keywords. It's going to show not provided. However, if you link up Google Analytics with Search Console, then you will see keyword level data within the search engine optimization report. That's within acquisition, and then it's called search engine optimization, and then there's a report called queries that will show the query data. All right, last question from Paul. Is there a black spot between display and search attribution along the customer journey? Having trouble figuring out what that question means. Paul, if you could just clarify that, that'll be the last question I take here. So Paul, you just said if I click on display, then look it up in Google search, click on a paid ad, then organic. Okay. So yeah, we're getting into more like attribution modeling here. So Paul's example here is you click on a display ad and then you leave the site, and then you look it up in Google search, click on a paid ad, and then leave, and then search, click on an organic ad, and then convert. So it's another good example in Google Ads. If you use Google Ads conversion tracking, it'll track back to the first click. So it'll show that that search ad generated the conversion. And in analytics, because of the last click that happened was an organic search, or analytics will show that as an organic search conversion. Now, there are ways to dig into the customer journey. In analytics, you can change the attribution model that's within the goals or conversions section. That would show you the customer journey, and you might see that it went from search or went from display. And sorry, I might have just explained that wrong. You said the display was clicked first. So in Google Ads, it would track back to that display ad. So it would show display and then search and then organic. You would see that path. And then within Google Ads, they are also showing that now. So you can get that data basically from both areas. Google Analytics does get pretty advanced as far as attribution modeling. So I would certainly recommend digging into the conversion section and taking a look at how the data changes when you change the attribution model. And you can also take a look at the path to conversion. That's a report in analytics. So Paul, your last question there. So it means it makes a difference if I track the same conversion with analytics or ads pixel. It does make a difference, and I would recommend you use Google Analytics and have those goals all set up. But when you are optimizing your Google Ads campaign, I highly recommend using the Google Ads conversion tracking pixel and optimizing your campaigns using that as your conversion. Because if you use analytics to optimize, you would be missing some of those conversions that originally came from Google Ads, but then it's kind of like other channels stole the conversion just because they were the last click that generated the conversion. All right, I made it through all the questions. Jared, there is a recording, and we'll be sending that out in the next 24 hours. So you should get an email in Friday afternoon. So I'm going to close it out. I want to encourage everyone to please answer the survey. When I close this, you should get automatically redirected to a survey. Would love your feedback, and look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. All right, everyone, take care.